don't get caught buying junk. Know what you're buying. I know everybody's trying to save $1 on their next transmission for their project car. You think you might be coming across a good deal on Marketplace or Craigslist, but oh. Well, the first thing I saw was the magnet, and upon closer inspection, definitely an issue with 6th gear. Part of that story is straight. Make sure you guys stick around, because not only am I going to show you a simple test you can do to avoid buying a busted gearbox, but I also want to introduce you to a tool that has helped me, and it's something that you can use. It's very inexpensive. It plugs right into your phone, and you can get a better idea what's going on inside the transmission before you put the money down and buy it. Because you can never trust the seller's word. You got to do your own due diligence and find out for yourself. I've been there, I'm sure you've been there. They say that something is in good condition, but you find out the hard way that it wasn't. And you think you got a good deal on it because you paid, way underpriced for it. Soon you realize that it's gonna cost you almost double to fix it when you didn't really anticipate that. Now, I hear this story all the time. Some people kind of have this idea in their head when they're going to buy a used transmission, like, I'm gonna pick up the transmission for $1,000. They go online, they see rebuild kits. There's so many rebuild kits out there from various different suppliers and different components that come in the rebuild kits. And they think, okay, $1,000 for the transmission, $500 for the rebuild kit. I'll be in this thing at $1,500. I just saved like $1,000. And then you get home, you realize, or they bring it to me, I tear down the transmission and I tell them, hey, we're gonna need other parts that are not included in the rebuild kit, like your gear is busted, your countershaft is busted, your 1-2 slider is busted, and all these parts did not come in the rebuild kit. They get all frustrated because they thought that they had it all figured out when they really didn't know what they had from the start to begin with. Or the seller says, oh, it just needs synchros, 2nd and 3rd are grinding. That's also a common question. My 2nd gear is grinding. It's just the synchro, right? It's not that simple. More information on that in a different video. And as far as I know, I've never seen a Tremec with a window on the side of it to be able to inspect all the parts and be able to point out what's wrong with it. Just by driving it and saying it grinds in 2nd gear is not telling you everything that's wrong with the transmission. I also like to be transparent. I like to diagnose and take the transmission apart and see what needs to be replaced, versus just selling you a rebuild kit and not fixing other problems that aren't associated with a rebuild kit. So I think this test will really help you save a couple bucks and kind of make you better understand what you're buying. Now, before I show you guys the tool and show you this example, I want you to get a better understanding on how a transmission works so you can educate yourself a little bit and have a better understanding of what you're looking at. Now, I recently did a video on how to calculate your gear ratio if you have your transmission together or you have your gears apart on the table. I'll leave a link below if you want to check out that video. All right, back to the table with the T56 here, and just go over some basics. We got the input shaft, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, 6th, 5th. That's the main shaft on the top. On the bottom, we have the counter shaft, same thing, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, 6th, 5th. We have our input shaft. That is always going to be turning if the engine is turning. That is our main drive gear. That is always going to be turning this counter shaft. You can see this counter shaft is one piece. And if you look on the top, on the main shaft, these are all separate. So they're all floating. But at the same time, they're always meshed together. These are never going to separate in that sense. The teeth are always going to be meshed. But until a gear is selected on the main shaft, it's not going to drive the output shaft. There are sliders in between here in your synchronizer. So once a gear is selected, that slider is going to be connected to the output shaft. And as it engages the gear, it's going to connect the gear with the slider with the output shaft, and you're going to be driven. Now that you have a better understanding on how a transmission works, how the power flows through it, goes through the input to the counter shaft, to the gear that is selected on the main shaft, to the output shaft. I can calculate the gear ratio by counting the number of revolutions on the input shaft by 1 revolution of the output shaft. So if that input shaft spins 3 revolutions in first gear. While that makes 1 revolution, that means the first gear ratio in this is 3 to 1. Not only can you do this when you go to pick up a transmission or to check the gear ratios in your transmission, but you can actually do this to test to see if you got a problem with the transmission. Because if that input shaft is not driving the output shaft, then there's an issue. I'm gonna try third gear now, see what that is. That's 1. Uh-oh. What does that mean? That can't be good. So right now, there's a situation that the input shaft is not turning the output shaft. It is not spinning the output shaft. So right there tells me there's an issue with third gear, whether it's the gear itself, shift fork, something's going on with that gear that it's not being driven. It's not driving the output shaft. But to ultimately get a better idea of its condition is this tool I'm about to show you. This is what you need. This is a Borescope. It'll plug right into your phone. It's about 30-40 bucks. I'll put the links below in the description. I'll give you a few options. But this one is very handy. You can put this in a transmission, wiggle it around in there, and you'll be able to inspect the gears. You can look for chips, breaks, cracks, broken components, and like the one you're looking at right now. Now here is the problem with the third gear. If you look at the top right corner, you can see that slider going in and out. I'm engaging third gear, and as I rotate it, you can see that the gear teeth on the counter shaft on the bottom and the gear teeth on the main shaft on the top completely sheared off, and that's why this transmission is not being driven in third gear. And you can see second gear right next to it. There's some chips on it that caught some damage as well. So there you have it, guys. Get this tool. Don't buy the wrong transmission. And this is another example of what you just saw. And this is an input shaft. Well, it was an input shaft. Don't get caught buying junk. Know what you're buying. You can even put this in engines. If somebody's saying a 347, I got a 347 motor I'm selling. Well, if you're familiar with stroker Fords, old pushrod 302s, or even if they just say it's rebuilt, it's got forged pistons and rods, you can stick this thing down into the distributor hole, spark plug hole, in the drain plug, and wiggle it around in there. And if it's a 347, you can look, see if they cut the bottom of the cylinders. If it's, you can look at the pistons and rods, the whole rotating assembly. You can see if they're telling you the truth or they're just trying to push junk on you. And if you watch any other of my videos, I kind of break down how to tell if a synchronizer is good or bad just by looking at it sitting in the transmission. I cover how to look at the engagement teeth and the gear teeth. If you watch a couple of those videos, you can get a better idea of what you're looking at when you put this thing and wiggle it around in the transmission. I'll put the links below in the description. I'll give you a few options. And if you happen to come across, or you're looking for a TKO 500, TKO 600, like the one I just showed you, and you have a broken gear, there's nothing you can do. As of fall 2025, there are no gears available. Nobody manufactures those gears for the TKOs. You can buy a brand new transmission, but you cannot buy gears. You can't buy main shafts. You have to go online and find used parts in order to fix it. And I've been looking for a while, and it's been slim for a long time. So if you go out and you pop this thing in there and you see there's a broken gear, you can walk away. You can save your money for something worth rebuilding. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like and subscribe. Head over to my channel. I got other videos on these Tramic 5 and 6 speeds. I'm just here sharing my experience with them, showing you guys what to look for, how to rebuild them. Hopefully save you some money and get your transmission rebuilt right.